you don't spend some time and energy on your physical well-being, your physical health, eventually it's gonna force you to. When you exercise, you get stronger, and that is equally true of the mind as it is the body. I think there's a lot of comfort in physical security.
We got Mr. John Michael.
Hey, how's it going?
What's up, dude?
Happy to be here.
I've been wanting to have you on for a long time.
Yeah, I'm so flattered. You know,
do you remember how we met, or the first time we met?
Yeah, so I thought about that. It's been so long, and I feel like we've talked many times since then. It's been years.
It's been, I think, 2.5 years.
Yeah.
And I was a personal trainer at F45 during the pandemic. Are you familiar with F45?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I have some friends there.
Okay. And I used to train Victor Tagunde all the time, the acro machine.
Okay.
Do you remember who that is? Or no, he's the guy who brings out the speaker on the green. And I went out to the green for the first time to learn some acro yoga and this and that. And then I think it was the second time I was at the green, I met you through Mike. Mango Mike. Remember who that is?
Yeah, of course, yeah. I just saw him yesterday.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. And
his roommate was someone I went to college with. So that's kind of how it like all linked up.
That's so funny. Like I feel like LA has like millions of people and it's this big space.
Yeah.
But we only go to so many places. We all know some of the same people. So you meet one person, you're like, oh, you go here. We have this mutual friend. Like, oh, do you go to this thing? Oh, we must have just missed each other. You know?
Because a buddy of mine ran into you and we FaceTimed. I don't know if you remember. A buddy of mine did what's your guys' fire training.
So I was hosting a fire spinning group for like over a year.
Yeah.
And it was a lot of fun. We got a lot of content and stuff like that, and a lot of practice.
Sure.
Some like created some like very genuine connections. I still have people ask me about that and stuff. And I think, now I'm at a point where if I were to organize something like that, I'd want it to be...
Oh, so you organized it?
Yeah.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah, so now I want it to be something probably less frequent and bigger each time. It's like, it's kind of the difference of like, we were doing it every single week on like a Wednesday night.
Yeah. Which is impressive.
Yeah, and it was kind of accidental at first. It was like this other thing canceled, and we were like, where should we go? And I was like, let's go to the roof of my parking structure, because it was only like a handful of us, like maybe like 3-4 at first, and then more people started showing up, and once we got to like 30-40 people, I was like, okay, we gotta move somewhere else.
Yeah.
Like,
if you guys don't know what we're talking about, John participates in I guess fire spinning.
Yeah
And it's like a bow staff, but like a lot of fire on each end, and they do it in a pretty manner that's very entertaining.
Yeah, thank you. I have a few different props. I've got a trident as well, some double staves, some like little fire guns. Those ones are a little tricky because you're basically pulling out revolvers at an event. They have like these big wicks on them, but every time I'm still like, these look like guns.
Dude, it's so attractive to the eye because like I don't know if it's like a historical thing or an ancestral thing of like when you see fire, you're automatically like gravitated towards it.
Yeah, there's the flow arts. There's actually a field of positive psychology about the flow state and stuff like that. And when you get into the flow state, you're literally going with the flow. You're moving with the momentum of these props and stuff. It's kind of an extension of like dance. Dance is flowing. You're with these props, you're basically extending that flow further away from you. So like, how like centripetal force works and stuff, it's a lot easier to track.
Sure.
And then there's a few different ways. Some people do like contact juggling, which is where you can kind of put on other parts of your body and move it around smoothly.
Oh, I've seen that. The fire.
Yeah, but all of it is tapping into this like flow state, which is so there's some interesting like neuroscience behind that.
That's crazy that you're coming at from a scientific standpoint, because it's very, I guess, yogi when people say flow state now. It's very like, oh yeah, I need to get into my flow state to feel better, or this and that, and they don't understand the actual. I mean, I don't even know the actual like scientific flow of the flow state.
Yeah. So no, I appreciate you pointing that out. So I actually have my personal style in general is often like a split.
Okay.
I'm not doing it today, but it's like a split half and half kind of thing.
What do you mean a split half and half?
Kind of like one side of me is one color and the other side of me is another color.
Okay.
So sometimes if I'm feeling like real.
Oh, like during your performances.
During performances, or even sometimes it's just in my daily life. And if I'm really feeling like it, I'll have like multiple layers of like shirt, pants, shoes.
Well, I think I saw that on your just profile photo, right? There's like one light, one dark.
Yeah, I'll do. That's kind of.
What's the meaning behind it?
I think it's kind of like symbolic of who I am as a person. I think I am the child of an artist, and a teacher and stuff like that.
Sure.
And like an engineer, mathematician, sort of type, that analytical type.
Yeah. So you're like the happy medium.
Yeah, I feel like I've kind of always
the perfect combo.
I would no, no. Actually, it's sometimes it's a struggle to balance the two. It seems so enticing to just like pick one and stick to it.
Sure.
But I feel like I've kind of always straddled that line.
Yeah.
And when it comes to performance and stuff, it's very artistic, very creative. But then there's still like the business side of it,
Sure.
marketing and logistics.
Like
and
both sides are very interesting.
Yeah. And I think they're analogies to the same story. I think.
Yeah. I also have to feel like you have to understand both sides to understand the full thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So like, I think a lot of people, when they hear, like you talk about like yogi and like the hippy dippy sort of like, what was it, woo woo stuff? I think a lot of people, they hear like soul and spirit or even like God and stuff like that, and they get this like defensive, like, oh, that's the other team. And I think my gift is that I can kind of see that and translate the analogy to something that maybe makes more sense to someone that has a different aptitude about it.
That's a gift, bro. Because there's a lot of people who, again, will throw up that defensive layer both ways and be like, oh, I don't understand like that science talk. I don't want to talk about that. But then you translate that science into like what they are feeling in maybe their sound bath or in their whatever, or vice versa. There's this person explaining the spirituality of, or the flow of, we'll just say sound bath again, and then maybe someone like you can interpret it in a way that scientifically makes sense. Yeah,
and it's difficult too, because I think, like I said, the automatic, people have this automatic aversion to the unfamiliar, or like something that doesn't necessarily fit their current ecosystem.
Well, people just don't like being uncomfortable, right? They don't like...
Yeah.
Like they shop at the same grocery stores or this and that.
No, hey, sometimes they don't, There's the Trader Joe's people, and then there's the like Costco people.
Sure.
I go to both. but yeah, I definitely,
happy medium.
I feel like I'm pretty sensitive to vibes, and you feel a vibe difference when you go to certain spaces like that.
Oh yeah, Costco, it's like you're ready to throw on your emotional shield to like
a little bit. Like I've had people like not want to move their carts, things like that, and I get a little frustrated. But at the same time, I'm like, I like the Costco experience. I have a friend in Dubai who he's about to visit again this month. And the last time he was in town, he was like, "We have to go to Costco. It's an
experience,
for
sure."
He was so excited.
I love people watching at Costco, because you don't know like what type of people you're gonna get there too.
That's true. Yeah, I mean, like, because no matter what they do outside of, like, some people just stay at home on their computer. They don't go to the same places as us, but they still have to go to the store.
Sure.
So you're like, oh, that's where you've been.
Yeah. It's kind of overwhelming when you go in Costco and just like, oh, there's so much shit.
Yeah. Well, I recently watched kind of this program explaining why they do it that way. Okay. And it's actually really cool. It actually made me want to shop at Costco more.
What was the reasoning?
They're basically trying to cut cut the fat, like cut extra costs as much as possible. And one of those costs is organizing the products. So they'll just stick it right there, and if they run out, you just move it right down. It's way more efficient versus keeping a back room or having like smaller shipments or like things like that.
The Erewhons of the world.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. For someone to Erewhon, I was like, I don't want to pay $50 for a meal every time.
You're right. Also,
for myself.
But you walk in Erewhon and it's beautiful. It is prestigious.
One of my clients talks about the dating scene at Erewhon.
There's a dating scene.
Yeah, I think it's like Monday or Tuesday night. She's like, that's the night that that's where the singles go.
But, that's hilarious if that's true.
Yeah. Well, that's an important thing when if you're looking for a partner is like, do you have similar values even when it comes to like your food or where you get your products?
In college, I went on a date with, nothing against, I guess, veganism, right? This one chick who was a vegan, and I was down to go check out. I went to a few vegan restaurants. It was awesome, and I like vegan food. I like every type of food, but she only liked vegan food. right? And she was like hardcore, like, this is all I eat, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, yeah, I can't do that in my head. It was like, I like sushi, I like steak, I like all these things.
Well, so talk about the difference. I think that's why vegan people feel passionate about it, is because for them it's like, in some ways
some vegan people, by the way, it's not everyone.
I love that. I appreciate the couple disclaimers, but yeah, I mean, I think for some people they are vegan for like ethical or moral reasons.
Sure.
But
which is valid.
Yeah, it's totally valid, and I respect that. I grew up in a family that has no problem raising an animal, and it is your food source as well.
Sure.
So it's like maybe even a step further is like there's this circle of life that we all have, and like we can't necessarily synthesize all of the components that another animal might be able to, that is like an herbivore. We're truly omnivorous. And so I try to look at the clinical nutritional side and be like, what's and then also my background, I feel like some people are more or less like compatible with a vegan diet, and I struggled when I tried to go plant-based. But that's not my background, so it felt like an uphill battle.
I've seen people make it work though. Like I've seen plant-based bodybuilders. I'm sure
I think we have some mutual friends. Yeah.
And
Actually, the person we met through is a vegan.
Who?
Michael.
Michael's
but he's
he does fruit mostly, all this.
Mango Mike.
Mango Mike. He was Mango Mike for a while.
Yeah, but no, I respect that, because I really like appreciate his like
philosophy.
Approach. Yeah, his approach to it is he's just pretty open to everything, and he's like, let's see how this goes.
He's built a good community for it.
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
pretty big out there. Circling back to like where we met, you were hanging upside down on a bar just from your feet.
Yeah.
Okay. And you came over because Victor was like, hey, Nate's working on his backflip. Like, can you help out? And I landed it a couple times.
Yeah.
But I think I hit my head one time and I haven't got it back since.
It wasn't that day.
It wasn't that day.
Okay.
It was like after.
Sometimes I feel very, very responsible. People see the stuff I do and they get inspired. They're like, me too. And then just straight on their face.
The stuff that John does is insane, guys. If you go check out his page.
It happens at like bars and stuff. Like I know sometimes the management and the employees, and they're like, do this thing, or like help bring the hype to the bar.
Sure.
And so I'll do like a backflip or something crazy. And then somebody else in the crowd is like, me too, and then just does it. And a lot of times I'm like, anxiety, but then other times
someone lands it.
Yeah, they nail it, stick it, and I'm like, you're a gymnast, aren't you? Like, yeah. Okay. That's tuck check is the thing. When you're drinking, you say tuck check. It's you have to show that you're not drunk by sticking a back tuck.
Yeah, one of my best friends out here, she was a UCLA gymnast. She's good friends with some of us and everything, and she does that when we're out.
Oh yeah, it's all the gymnasts. Yeah, it's fun.
A flex.
That's why I like it's so fun to go out in a group of people that do that stuff, because it's like everyone kind of ups the ante a little bit. It's like, oh, look at that, we could climb that.
Yeah, everyone else is just over here trying to get laid and get drunk.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I feel like once you've experienced like once you're out with it, like having fun with your friends, it's like that stuff seems so much less interesting.
Yeah,
you're like, oh, people are just on the hunt. It's like, they could just go to Air One.
Yeah, that part. Yeah, dude. So I saw you upside down, and you came over. We did some backflips, and then I was like, "Dude, that's super cool!" Like, and you're like, "You could definitely do it." And you looked at my feet, and I don't know what muscle you said on the foot. You're like, "Oh, you're very strong." I was like, "How do you know I'm strong?" You're like, "Oh, this muscle on your feet like indicates that you're capable of it." And I'm like, "Okay." And then we did it, and I hung there for like 10 seconds on my toes, and I was like...
Your anterior tibialis. Tibialis. I saw the development of it, the contraction of it, and I was
how could you see that?
So often, I tell people all the time, even like my family members, people people I've dated and stuff, I say like sometimes...
Anterior tibialis.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So sometimes when I look at people, just automatically, I scout like athletic conditioning. And often I know what they're capable of, even if they don't know it themselves.
That's so impressive.
Because a lot of it is the conditioning and then the technique. And I think a lot of people stop between the two, and they don't learn the technique even though they have the conditioning.
Okay.
And so a lot of what I do for other athletes, for my clients, stuff like that, is I take the condition they already have, maybe build on it as well. For some people, get to the conditioning point. and then teach them a technique. But for a lot of people, they don't know what they're capable of yet, and it brings me so much joy to like show that to them.
Oh yeah, I was like, whoa, like how did this guy know I could do this?
Yeah.
So I was very appreciative, and I was like, oh, this guy's so cool. And then you dropped into the splits, and I'm like, I come from a very bodybuilding, powerlifting background, and like I'm a lot more into like functional fitness as well. I do like barefoot runs and muscle ups and all this stuff. But
you're a well-rounded trainer.
Yeah.
And I respect that. I appreciate that, because a lot of people, they stick to their thing,
and which is great too. Like that's your niche, and like you could be very successful at that.
Yeah, but sometimes if you're like, the reason I call myself a comprehensive health coach is sometimes if your goal is like longevity and like quality of life and stuff, it wouldn't hurt to incorporate other things. But I think, like I said, people have these assumptions. These it's intimidating to try something that you may not be good at.
Yeah, like the first time I did like a clean and jerk, I was like, yeah, I don't like this. Some
lifting stuff.
Or a backflip.
I always like, it's the number one priority is to not get injured. Yeah, because as soon as you get an injury, you cannot train.
Yeah, you can't train at all.
Yeah, and your back, like with like barbell lifts and stuff. I take very cautiously at this point in my life.
I feel like every barbell, because like
10 years ago I would just go for it, but now it's like, I don't want to put my back out for a week.
So you landed in the splits and I was like, what the fuck, dude? I've never seen John's covering it up, but he is absolutely diced, guys. I mean,
thank you.
You're shredded, bro. And I never saw, I think at that point in my life 3 years ago, someone so built, like physically, that looks like a bodybuilder but could land in the splits. You were the first person that I was like, oh, that's
Was it from
possible.
a backflip? Did I backflip into the splits?
I think so.
Yeah, that's also, now that I'm 30, I'm like, let me warm up.
Yeah, warm up a little bit.
Back then I was just go for it.
3 years ago? I guess it's not that long ago.
Hey, a lot happens when you hit 30. You have this mental process of like, oh, it's a new decade.
Yeah.
But
you could do more things than most anybody can do.
Yeah, that did bring me a lot of comfort as I get older. I'm like, you know what? I'm in the best shape of my life as well.
Yeah.
Despite being a little more cautious now, I'm definitely more capable, stronger, more balanced, everything than I ever was in my life.
Yeah.
And
isn't that a great feeling, just to keep getting better?
It's such a good feeling. It's such a good feeling.
People say, oh yeah, 26 your peak and 24 or like 18. And then I've seen it. People identify as that's their best point in their life. And then they just choose not to like continue training or this and that. And that's a lot of the population.
Yeah. So two things. One, I know a contortionist. She very talented contortionist, professional, Lena Fumi, who
shouts out Lena.
Yeah, she started much later in life, in her late 30s.
Oh,
and
what?
Yeah, contortion. So a lot of people think
can you explain contortion to the people who don't know?
Contortion is like extreme flexibility coupled with like a dance performance and strength, because you have to be able to move in these like folded positions and stuff. Okay. And so that's strength, it's flexibility, it's all that sort of stuff. And any contortionist will tell you that one of the most common questions they get is, when did you find out you were flexible? And it's like, oh, after a few years of stretching rigorously. Yeah. Like after going to a contortion coach for a few years and working on it every single day for that period, then I found out I was flexible. And it's like, same with artists and stuff. It's like, when did you find out you had this artistic ability? It's like, oh, after a few years of art school.
Yeah. Or a lot of work putting into this craft.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think, again, it's intimidating, but I really try to put out the message that anyone can improve and learn at any point in life. Yeah. I'm excited to get older, because it will shut up the people that tell me like, oh, I could do that when I was your age.
Yeah. Well, like, a lot of like
I don't know anyone my age that does the stuff I do.
Know.
So
that part.
Yeah.
Like a lot of clients, or some of my clients, would be like, I'm not like 30 years old anymore. I was like, and then I'll just point someone out like a Cameron Haynes or a David Goggins who are like 50, and I'm like, dude, you're younger than them.
Yeah,
they're proving my point correct.
Depending on the sport, though, they might be. Depending on the sport, they might be on a different vitamin regimen.
100%.
Which can change your metabolic age.
Yeah.
So that's also a factor as well.
The metabolic age is like a big thing right now. Everyone's talking about it. It's like, how old actually are you?
Yeah.
Like from your physical standpoint.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people. There's so many excuses: age, genetics, all sort of stuff. And, people offer these to me unsolicited all the time. Strangers will walk up and be like, oh, if I had your genetics, I would be able to do this and that. And
like, bro, I worked hard for this.
Well, part of it is like, I tell them like, all right, join me. Eat what I eat, do what I do, train the way I do, and let's just see what happens. Yeah, because it's like put it all on genetics is to discount, like, for me, a couple decades of training. And
which is shitty, because like a lot of people, like even for me too, someone would be like, oh, like I wish this or that, and I was like, just
how often do you try?
How often do you try?
Yeah, that's the thing. Oh, I wish I could do that. I could never do that. It's like, okay, how often do you try? The answer is always never.
Yeah. So that's a circling back around. After you land in that splits and I saw that, I was like, this is possible. So I started stretching a good amount, and like I could put my wrists over my toes now. And
I love that. Yeah, I try to be a living example of what's possible, and kind of like a living like juxtaposition of like you said, like. A lot of people don't expect somebody 200-pound man to do contortion, to be able to, do like.
And you've taken a lot of pretty photos, like in the nude of them, and I'm just like, that's dope as fuck too, bro. We can talk about masculinity and femininity later, but.
Exactly. Yeah, I try to be a walking contradiction. Being able to bench over 300 pounds and also balance on my fingertips or gracefully like fold in half.
What inspired you to, I guess, do those things? What inspired you to go against the status quo of like, this is the way you should do it?
I think a combination. I think I had no concept of status quo, so that helped.
What do you mean you had no concept of status quo?
I think...
like just from a child, you were just open-minded to everything?
My parents are very, very open-minded, and they would challenge me whenever I kind of brought up the notion of a status quo. Okay. I remember one time I said, I was like 10 years old, and I said to my dad, I didn't want something because it was purple, and purple is a girl's color. And he said, actually, purple is my favorite color. And I appreciate now that both my parents, they whenever they saw like me being a little closed-minded or something, they would challenge it. And that challenged my ability to see it a little differently, to change my perspective. And so I think when I, in school, because my family isn't like that, I didn't have like a status quo. Like I could kind of do whatever I want, and all they cared about was that I was safe and happy, and I did sports for a long time, and I had one of those dads that he wanted me to be healthy, and so a lot of things we did together were active, baseball, golf, track and field, stuff like that. You
used to play golf?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah, we should play.
Yeah, it's been a while. My clubs are in Seattle, but I was very athletic, and as I was getting out of school, I was like, okay, what am I gonna do to maintain this training that I got so used to doing so frequently? Yeah. And I got into martial arts a little bit. And I went with the person I was training with at the time, my like workout buddy. We went to Cirque du Soleil, and he was a little bit more.
Cirque du Soleil is a circus show, correct?
Yeah, he was a little bit more in that world than I was at that point. And
you weren't in it at all at that point.
I was a teenager. Okay. I was a teenager, and I had done some circus stuff when I was like 5 or 6, but it was like variety, juggling, ball walking. I unicycled on a team when I was like 10.
That's such a weird thing. Like when you're on their first date and they're like, "What did you do?" Like that is interesting. I unicycled.
I was in parades. One of the first things I ever did for money was taught people how to unicycle. I taught like other kids.
Really?
Yeah. And again, no status quo.
Do you still unicycle?
Yeah, I actually mountain unicycle now, and it's so fun. You get it's a unicycle with a giant mountain tire, and you can go on different terrain. And I feel like it fits my legs a little better. I have some long legs, so it's like the wheel is bigger, so you're the ratio of like
you mountain unicycle.
Yeah,
bro. I'm trying to process this right now. I'm trying to picture you going up a mountain.
I have photos
in a unicycle. We'll look at them later.
Yeah, but
you know how wild that sounds.
So to circle back, we were at Cirque du Soleil. I saw. I had dabbled in like flips and things like that at this point, and I saw professional acrobatics, flying acrobatics, and stuff like that. And I turned to my buddy and I said, "Hey, there's no reason why we can't do that too." And to me, that was the epitome of athleticism. That was like goals, and like I said, strength, flexibility, function, gracefulness. You have to stop and admire that, no matter who you are.
Sure.
And I was like, you know what, like. I have a foundation. Like, let me see where I can take this. And I got into it for fun. It was like a hobby at first, and then people started offering like to pay me for different gigs. And then,
how old were you at this point?
I want to say the first time I started getting like paid gigs, I was like 19.
Okay.
So it's been a while.
And this circus that you, I guess, saw for the first time, was that in Seattle as well?
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And
like, how did you get into it? Did you just go up to them after?
They're circus schools.
Okay.
So I went to one as a kid, but it was not the crazy acrobatic kind.
There's circus schools.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
To become like a circus member, or what are they called?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, they're different names.
Okay.
You know, I really like Circus Center in Vegas. That's a really cool spot. They do classes, but there's some around here too. Firestorm is a group that I'm friends with as well. They do talent. They book out for events, and then they also teach and train it, and they have a couple facilities. And so I got into it, started taking some classes, started seeing what I could do, and it just kind of, the momentum, it snowballed from there.
Yeah. Of just what?
As an athlete, I always want to push it more and more. So like, you know, when push-ups got easy, then you're like, all right, well, how do I mix it up? You know, as a calisthenics guy, it's like, all right, one arm, handstand push-ups, things like that. You get into it, not at the same time. One arm handstand, that would be crazy. But you always want to make it harder and harder. Sure. And then you get to a point where nobody else is at, and they're like, hey, can we pay you to do this for a crowd? And it's like, sure. Like, you know, you have no reason to say no.
I guess what inspired you to keep doing that, of like, oh, like push-ups are easy. Now let's do one-handed push-ups. Now let's do a handstand. Now let's do a handstand push-up. What if I could do a one-hand handstand?
So my slogan with my coaching business and practice is embrace the challenge.
Embrace the challenge. Okay.
Yeah. So I firmly believe in a philosophy of anti-fragility, where if we tackle little challenges head on and even get excited about them and see
small wins.
Yeah, little. Yeah, I mean things like I said, a lot of people, they have this aversion to challenge, and it's like, well, that's how we grow. That's how we get better. So when I see something that like athletes do this all the time, they see something that's difficult for them, and they're like, ooh, that's really hard. I'm gonna do this every day now. I'm gonna do this all the time. And then next time I see you, we're gonna do it together and see where I'm at. I'm gonna try to beat you. That competition element too. So it's. I think there's just this natural like high that you get from connecting with your body and seeing what you're capable of, and you know.
Where do you think that comes from though? Because there's a ton of people out there.
There's physiological reasons, like your endorphins release.
Yeah. So but what I'm saying is there's going to be a ton of people out there who don't have that mindset towards it.
Yeah, I think part of it is experience and stuff, the upbringing. And you know, I was fortunate enough to get into sports when I was young. Yeah. And I think a lot of people, they may not have had the same experience of that. And so that's why, you know, professionally, what I try to inspire that in people. I try to like show people like, again, no matter who you are, where you're at, you can always embrace little challenges and watch. And once you see the improvements from embracing those little challenges, it gets addictive. Yeah. You know, at a certain point, you just, most of what I do is I just get someone to try something. Yeah. And then they're like, then you can see it in their face. They're like excited about it. Yeah. And in some ways, you know, like I said, it's a quality of life thing. It's like you can, like, there's not a lot of things that like genuinely improve your quality of life. And I think health and fitness and stuff is one of those.
Yeah. I also feel like it's something that you could earn and be better at than like a lot of people. Like, you can't buy your body. Yeah. You can't buy these skills.
You've heard that the gym is the most fair place in the world.
It's so fair. Yeah. It's because like everyone is fair game. Yeah. There's no advantage.
Yeah. I mean, there's some people take risks that I wouldn't take too. So that, you know, that. Yeah. And you can, and that's their decision to make. You know, I'm all for like, you know, every time I practice a new skill, I'm taking a risk of injury and stuff. And so there's that, the mental fortitude of these challenges and stuff like that, and then there's the like consistency over time too. I mean, you could have minimal risk, tiny little changes over time, and see the same sort of improvements. It just may take a little longer.
Turtle's gonna win the race, guys.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and like I said, nothing puts you out longer than an injury. Yeah. You know, if you
it prolongs the progress so much.
I've had some injuries, and you take a risk. You know what you're getting into, and then you have the injury, and then you can't train for a while, and it sets you back. And so it's like, okay, where's that line of like an acceptable risk or like a safe way of integrating this? And then once it becomes safe, then you can push it further.
I mean, that's kind of with life too, right?
Yeah.
It's like with business, with everything.
I often think fitness is like an analogy to other aspects of life.
Do you treat it like a game?
I mean, I tend to gamify a lot of things, not necessarily just fitness.
Yeah.
But I mean, what is a game but just like competition and challenge and stuff? Yeah. So like in that definition, like life is a game as well.
Yeah. I like to think of every little challenge as a game.
Yeah.
Like, when people, I don't play a lot of video games, do you?
I used to play more. I used to work at Nintendo.
Oh,
actually.
No way.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. And I mean, that's the thing. Like, you see some of these games, like, I don't want to name any names, but like some of the games are like literally just simulating real life. It's like, yeah, you're here farming, and it's like they find it exciting. Like, just wait till you see like the world outside your room.
Sure.
And so like I love video games. Sometimes I use video games as a warm up to the gym.
Sure.
But you got to have that balance.
Yeah. I feel like if people got the endorphins from winning the game of life in that level, it would be way more fulfilling too sometimes, but like
you just got to get your feet wet. I think a lot of people, like you said, they don't go out and try these things out.
Yeah.
And then, they experience things in a limited capacity, like through video games or through social media and stuff. And then at the end of the day, there's this like dissatisfaction that you can't really quite put your finger on.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, because you're not, self-actualization, you're not going to, your potential, you're not going to like rise to the occasion and have new experiences and enrich your experience of life.
Yeah.
You're taking the safest possible route, and like in some ways that's not conducive to like the long game.
Yeah, not at all. And I feel like you'll end up regretting it in the long term. You're gonna be 80 years old and be like, fuck, I wish I tried that backflip.
Actually, so wait, let me okay. show you this. So I found a graph recently that talked about metabolic age, very timely, and in this graph they compare. I don't know, you could maybe put this somewhere, but this is from yiexercise.com.
Okay.
And they actually have it's a comparative analysis. They reference the studies and stuff.
Sweet.
But if you look at like an 85-year-old athlete, they are at the same metabolic age as an average 45-year-old. Take a look at that. So they put it on a XY axis.
No, for sure.
Yeah, and I think about this in my own family. My grandpa in his 80s was living in his own house with my grandma, totally self-sufficient. Yeah. And he kind of refused to get complacent and stuff like that, and it showed in like he was more like healthy, capable than other people his
possible,
age.
Dude. I've seen so many people do it, and that's why like I train my parents online now like once a week.
Yeah, me too. I actually have my parents I have specifically my mom and stepdad are on my like fitness app.
Yeah.
And I'm putting workouts in there for them.
Just to plug it.
Well, so my coaching platform is Live Anti-Fragile.
Okay. Anti-Fragile.
Live Anti-Fragile, yeah. And the app I use, it's custom, and I put in my own exercises, and I offer programming for my clients that they have access to this app. They can use me as a health coach.
Yeah.
And it tracks nutrition, workouts, things like that.
And did the coaching stem from just like naturally like started from the circus stuff? Like, oh, I'm so good at these things that people are just coming up to me to teach them. And is that kind of how it like spiraled up?
Kind of the other way around. I was already the day I turned 18, I became a personal trainer.
Oh, so you just wanted to?
Yeah, I've been a master personal trainer for like at least over a decade now.
What does that mean, master personal trainer?
So it has different titles depending on like if you earned it through a specific institution or through like a company. So for some companies like major gyms and stuff, they say once you've rendered a certain amount of sessions, you become a master trainer.
Okay.
For me, I was big on continuing education and like expanding on my skills. And as in order to keep your certification, as you know, you have to do continuing education credits
all the time.
And
it's kind of a money game, guys, but like also you should be able. You should do it.
And it also it's good to do it even later in your career because it refreshes your memory about these sort of things. And a lot of times they I have accreditations in endurance training, resistance training, nutrition, like all these different fields. Yeah. And through the National Federation of Professional Trainers, once you have a certain amount of these, then you're a master trainer. Okay. So I'm a certified master trainer. Okay. I got that over a decade ago. And then since then, I feel like I've only gotten much more experience.
Knowledgeable and experienced.
Yeah.
Too.
Yeah. I at this point, I'm like, I don't know that I would have called myself a master back then.
Yeah.
But I had the piece of paper. Yeah.
Because like when I go back to when I first started training, it was I was 19.
Yeah.
And me thinking about what I was telling these clients to do, in some cases I was like, I shouldn't have told them to do that, you know?
Yeah, well, or you misjudge their condition level. So
Sure.
you were like, how did you know by looking at my shins that I could do this movement?
Yeah.
That's experience. That's I've been doing it for so long. I literally do manual therapies with people. So I'm using.
You work at Stretch Lab too, right?
I do very part time.
Okay.
And it's fun. The company's great. The owner is great. The management is great. The clientele are great. My coworkers. It's such a. It's honest,
safe space.
It's a little too comfortable,
Yeah.
you know, where I'm like, it's pretty chill, but like in the best possible way. So that's
Sure.
why I keep it at a reasonable amount. And it's nice because it's nice to have that like chill, consistent, you know, kind of thing that like.
It's just dependable.
I enjoy it. Yeah,
Yeah.
I do it because I enjoy it.
Yeah.
It's not the money for me. You could do a lot of things for money.
Yeah.
And you know, at the end of the day, it's like, well, is that how you want to spend your time?
Sure.
And yeah, what we do with like stretch therapy or even like manual therapies with athletic training and stuff is you're using your like conditioning essentially to feel what's going on with their body and adjust the tension, adjust the movement, stuff like that. You know, sometimes that is not 100%. And so you see someone, you think they're a certain amount of condition.
It's not 100%.
Well, like that first time, it's very possible that you went to do the toe hang and you just fell on your face.
Oh, yeah.
I try to avoid taking like I said, it's a responsibility that you're accepting the risk, you're putting the risk on somebody else.
Sure.
And that's when it's important to have experience.
It's kind of scary.
Yeah, you know, and it's important that people trust you to make recommendations like that because
sometimes it's blind faith too, dude.
They don't know what they're capable of.
Yeah.
You know, and so you have to accept the risk on their behalf and you know, spotting and things like that. You can make sure that they are minimizing that risk. Yeah. But there's always a risk. And as a trainer, I'm sure you feel bad when you suggest something and then they can't do one.
Well.
They can't do one. Yeah. Oh, okay, let's lower the weight. Let's change it up a little bit. But that's how you learn. That's how you learn. And that's why like experience allows you to do it more safely over time.
One of the biggest movements that I found in that is just simply sitting down on a bench or a chair and having someone just stand off that bench in one leg. The amount of people who can't do that is crazy.
That's actually even further than when I first started training. One of the things that blew my mind was the amount of people that can't stand on one foot.
Oh, I know.
Or jump properly. For me as an athlete, you jump. You just jump. Yeah. You have to. You have to lose that conditioning because we have this innate. Like kids are very biomechanically sound. They have like these innate. You know, the perfect squat form.
Yeah.
And you have to decondition out of that.
Yeah.
And then so with clients, as you know, you're having to reinstill things that they had deep down that they just lost.
Well, I have that with. I just got back from Japan, dude, and a few months ago, and I would go into restaurants and sit crisscross applesauce, and I was like, why are my hips and back cramping up right now? Because I never sit down crisscross applesauce like on the floor and just eat. And I know you're very capable of it because your flexibility is amazing. But
I mean, that's yoga, lotus.
Sure.
You know, there's the figure four stretch. There's a lot of different.
Yeah, John's saying I need to go to yoga. Yeah, I get it.
or just stretch with me. You know, I think a lot of the same thing is like yoga is one avenue. I am definitely more of an independent kind of trainer for myself. Yeah. And so I'll go to yoga classes, but if I really want to like push it and make progress,
do it by yourself.
I'm gonna do it by myself. Yeah. So I had to learn like the different poses and stuff.
My ex-girlfriend was rhythmic gymnastics.
Yeah.
So she did all these crazy similar contortion stuff, and I went through like
so much overlap.
Yeah, so much overlap. I did one stretching session with her. Dude, like, stretching, guys, is harder than working out.
Yeah, actually, I would put them in the same category. I would say I've had someone say weight training is just high intensity stretching. Because
what do you mean by that?
Well, because you're basically lengthening the muscle under a certain amount of tension.
Sure.
So stretching doesn't work if there's no tension.
Yeah.
And weightlifting also is creating tension in a different way.
Yeah.
The biggest difference, I think, with weightlifting is the range of movement that you're in. Is that you're in the mid-range, the closest range where the contraction happens, and a stretch is generally at the furthest range, at the end range, where that's where we want to increase range of motion. But a lot of what I do, corrective exercise and like mobility sort of stuff, is weight bearing, is like resistance training. You're just doing it at a lengthened muscle, like flies versus a press. Yeah, is that you're stretching and lengthening under tension. So somebody who does flies can stretch their chest better, even passively, than someone who's never lifted a weight.
100%.
Yeah, they can't handle the tension.
you're also going into that spot that's like not a natural movement too.
Yeah. So I would look at mobility in terms of like total range of motion, and then how much of that range you can use, how much is usable. That's your active range.
Yeah.
A lot of people like do a lot of stretching or are naturally somewhat flexible, and they have this huge range of motion, but they can't activate the muscles in it, and that's dangerous in the same way.
Can you give me an example of that?
Yeah, I mean, it's the same with like, as you've seen people do a split,
sure,
and then they can rise back up out of that split.
Yeah.
Is most people in a split cannot push that hard, but as you train the activation, you can load more weight, and
that adduction just like
exactly
just come up.
Yeah, and so that's mobility, and that's the difference between there's
flexibility and the mobility is greatest range of motion, but able to like use it.
Yeah, they're used interchangeably, like colloquially and stuff like that. But for me, my personal definition of mobility is that combination of range of motion, which I would call like flexibility, passive flexibility, and then the activation, which is your actual usable range. Bodybuilders and weightlifters and stuff have great activation, but they usually have a limited range of motion. And so in the same way that a bodybuilder often doesn't want to stretch, people who do a bunch of yoga and stretching don't want to weightlift. And so
that's interesting.
They're both important, and that's what contortion is, and that's what like acrobatics is. Is you're building on the usable range and making it stronger so you can do these feats.
What do you call it? Where do you get, or where have you gotten all your clients from? Is it from media? Is it from just like training at certain gyms?
Over the years, it's been different places.
Are you online or are you in person?
I do both. I do both. I do programming. I do sessions.
Sweet.
And if you guys take a look at my Calendly link to schedule a session, I do mobility sessions, stretch sessions, as well as other types of sessions, social emotional well-being as well, which is also a hugely important facet of health. Similar
to life coaching.
I try to stay away from
sure.
Yeah, because I again, like you said, I look at it like more clinically. I look at like what's their nutritional intake and how is that supporting their mental health. So when you look at like serotonin and dopamine, in order to properly synthesize serotonin and dopamine, you need the amino acids like tyrosine and tryptophan. You need the iron. You need the B vitamins. All of these things are essential to creating dopamine, serotonin, like these neurotransmitters that make us feel good, that are great for mood health, but they also help facilitate our muscle contractions. So
that's crazy, dude. Because like I feel like a lot of people, they aren't open to. They want a quick fix. They want a pill or this and that. When
everything that is that in the business of health and fitness, anything that gets traction, anything that becomes trendy, often carries this like sentiment of like miracle pill, like you don't, like it's simple, you just do this thing. And that's a huge hurdle, as you know, as a trainer. You gotta tell people like, no, you just gotta do the work. Like it's not, there's tricks
or gain the knowledge, because like what you just said right now, like I don't know a quarter or maybe half of like what you just said, like these supplements. And I'm just like, whoa, like I don't know enough.
And you know what? They're not necessarily supplements. You could do it in supplement form, or you can get it in a whole food source. You just eat a piece of chicken.
So that's the biggest thing. I was just like, the education that people don't know. Like I have a couple clients who are just taking all these medicines that doctors are telling them to take. And I was like, can you explain what this does for you? And they're like, I don't know.
I mean, in a way that's job security. But it's also like, why you go to the experts, the professionals and stuff like that is, there's, I want to remember his name. There's a book called The Death of Expertise. His name's escaping me right now, but I want to say he like won Jeopardy a bunch of times, the author. And he talks about how people don't trust the experts anymore because we have Google, we have WebMD. And so anyone can feel like an expert on anything if they spend a few minutes reading into it. And there are people that have spent years of their life understanding this on a fundamental level, as well as
it's different.
And so that's a big, also, as you know, a big part of training is like
if you could
dismantling existing beliefs.
Like if you could break down a bench press all the way down to like the molecules in your muscles like contracting and shit, like you can.
Actually, you go further than that. You could break it down to what foods turn into that muscle.
Exactly. And most people would just be like, bring the bar from your like nipple line and push it up.
Yeah, and that's the practical,
Sure.
and that's why you have the theoretical and then the practical.
Yeah.
And so you have a lot of people fresh out of school. They have the theoretical,
Yeah.
like clinical stuff very fresh in their mind, and they can speak to it, and then you see it in practice, and I would say just like I was saying before, is like one isn't necessarily better than the other, because sometimes the practical side is ahead.
Yeah. I think it's ahead because there's some people who don't have the bandwidth to understand or want to understand like the technicalities, and then just doing the practical movement itself is like beneficial for them.
Well, and also the theory relies on data, and sometimes the data collection it takes money, time, a vested interest in a researcher, and athletes will see it acutely what improves performance.
Yeah.
So some things that were workout supplements for many years. I mentioned tyrosine earlier. So that has been a workout supplement for a long time, because they could see that when they took it, it would improve performance. You get a better time. You can jump jump higher, run faster, all that sort of stuff. And they didn't care how it worked; it just worked.
Yeah.
And then it wasn't until like years later you have clinical studies that say that
this is the reasoning.
Yeah, or even the correlation between that and mental health, and why they really are so intermingled.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people who work out are my happiest friends.
It's therapy.
Yeah, you know, and people don't necessarily think that is true, but scientifically, if you break it down to like research and everything, it is.
There's also the chicken egg thing where it's like if you have time to work out and energy
That
and
part.
resources and stuff, is it easier to be in a better mental place?
Which is
I think it's both. I think it's both. I think there's your life out, like integrating your exercise into a healthy lifestyle, and then there's having a healthy lifestyle in the first place.
Yeah. What has training done for you? Just like for yourself, because objectively looking at it, for me, helping another human live a better life is very selfishly rewarding to me.
Yeah. Well, you have what is it? The hierarchy of needs, and at the top of the hierarchy of needs is self-actualization. It's like becoming your best self.
Sure.
And I think if you focus on your own training, you get to that point. Like once you, like you said, like I'm in the best shape of my life, and I feel like I'm as high on that like physical self-development as possible, and it brings me a lot of happiness. And at that point, you just want to share it with other people. And so I think there's a next level of the triangle of needs, the hierarchy of needs, which is once you get to that point, is sharing it with other people, so that it affects it on like a community level.
Yeah.
And then you live in a community of people that are positively impacted by this thing.
And overall, like this big sum of people who are similar to like your beliefs, your capabilities is just better for overall.
Or
right?
different. To challenge each other.
Yeah. Challenge each other to make everyone grow as a whole.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Because I feel like just that the betterment of it just betters the world. Like if you are challenging someone else to view fitness in a different way or life in a different way or this and that, and you could talk about it in a non-warlike manner of like, you're right, I'm right.
Constructive, not destructive.
A constructive manner, and then you both come out to a conclusion that both you guys somewhat agree on, but you could appreciate like the opposite side too.
Yeah, I mean there's compromise is kind of the essence of diplomacy. But there's also just like accepting that someone is not necessarily going to agree with you, and that's okay, because different people have different backgrounds, different values and stuff, and we all have to share the same space. And the best thing you can do is embrace the challenge. The slogan again.
There you go.
Embrace the challenge. Don't shy away from constructive conversations. Now, if it gets destructive, if someone is becoming destructive in that they're doing things that are maybe have like I want to give people the benefit of the doubt and say like maybe it's not intentional, they're just acting defensively or something. But you got to call it out. You got to say like, hey, that's not constructive. But if you want to continue having a constructive conversation, I'm still here for it. You got to have the energy for it, and that takes practice. That takes conditioning.
Yeah, I feel like there is a emotional exercise or like a social exercise. Like you getting those reps in to understand other people. Like the more you do it, the better you get at like understanding like where you should pivot in this conversation or this debate with just a friend. And a debate, it has a negative connotation these days, you know?
It does, yeah. And it's funny because, you know, I was told that debate is kind of making its way out of the public school systems and stuff like that as a...
I didn't know that.
I don't know if that's accurate. I feel like somebody said this recently. I have not looked into it at all.
Sure.
But I can feel it on like a societal level that people are like have this aversion to constructive debate and challenge each other. You know, I grew up in a family that like you could have heated discussions and then share a drink afterwards.
Yeah.
And you know, that might be a cultural thing as well.
Sure.
I think when my mom first saw my dad's family, she was like, "Why is everyone mad at each other?" And he's like, "No, they're having a great time." But again, it's getting that conditioning to where you see a challenge. And out of love for each other, you want to sharpen each other and say, like, let me challenge that.
Like iron sharpens iron type of deal.
Yeah. Because if you're, you know, within the family or within like your home and stuff, that's a safe space, and you're stuck with each other generally. You know, and that's why it's important to keep it constructive. Yeah. But then outside of that, because you love them and you care about them, you want them to be more capable, like on their own outside of that. So I think it comes from a very positive place, and it's insecurities that make it a negative experience.
Yeah, that part. I feel like insecurities just are the root of so much evil. Not evil in the world.
I mean, talk about like the toxic masculinity. A lot of it stems from insecurities.
Yeah, the stuff that you post, it makes total sense. Because, do you know who Naval Ravikant is?
Who is it?
Naval Ravikant.
I'm so bad with like names of like if I haven't met them personally.
Yeah, he's like an angel investor, but he's also a philosopher. He is he's big in the tech world, but he said this one quote one time, speaking of like a unicycle and circus. He was like, there's someone who rides a unicycle, right?
Naval, is that Naval? Did he write The Power of Now and stuff like that? Or
no.
Who am I thinking of? He wrote a book.
I don't know. But
I think I may have read one of his books actually. But yeah, go ahead.
So he says like there's someone riding a unicycle, right? And then there's like a bear, but then there's like the bear on the unicycle, right? And that's really fucking interesting. Like basically my point is like, so you have these masculine traits, right? And then you also have these feminine traits of like, you're taking these beautiful photos like nude and can do the splits and all these things. And I was like, that's fucking interesting.
I do sometimes feel like a bear on a unicycle.
That's what I'm saying. Okay. I'm glad my point got across.
I appreciate that. I'm going to steal that. I've never heard that, but yeah, that makes sense.
You know, and it's like that middle part of like these two opposing views of just like a guy with a beard and works out to like a very artsy side of like just being naked or flexibility and all these things. I was like, whoa, that's interesting. And it kind of made me uncomfortable when I looked at it originally, because I was like, that is so...
Ooh, what is it? Art should disturb the comfortable and comfort the disturbed.
There you go. You know, and I was just like, wow, that's cool. But a lot of people could have one view of it and a lot of people could have another view on it. And I was just like, what's this dude trying to make people think?
Yeah, you have to be prepared for that too. And, you know, I think...
And I feel like you get a lot of... negative feedback from it, or positive.
I get both. Yeah. And you know, that's part of it. You know, if you aren't upsetting people, you're probably not splashing enough. Yeah. But I think I am very fortunate to be I think there's a lot of comfort in physical security. So the fact that I am physically strong and capable and stuff like that, it lends to that ability to be vulnerable as well. Is like I can be.
I never thought about it like that.
I do feel like I can be more open because society allows it. I've already hit a certain amount of prerequisites where it's like, oh, okay,
like what? Give us the prereqs.
I mean, beard, muscles, stuff like that. It's like, okay, you're manly enough. Now let's see your sensitive side. Yeah. And
it's like, let me dye my hair real quick. Let me throw on some nail polish or something.
Well, and at the same time, like I can sympathize with guys who don't feel like they can do that because they will experience a much greater negative response. You know,
because they might not hit those prerequisites.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's like somebody actually said this like yesterday. They said, if a guy is shorter than this height, then they have to have a great personality. They have to really. And it's
what was your response to that?
I mean, I like to play devil's advocate. You know.
Yeah, I do too.
But at the same time, like. I get it. I think we have this like societal programming that says like this is ideal, is what we want and stuff. And then
this is what you should do. Basically, what we were talking about in the beginning.
Yeah, and then often people have to act pragmatically and say like, well, how is this going to change my life, or how is this going to benefit my life? And I think women are excellent at looking at like that bigger picture and say like, okay, like if I go out with this person, what's my experience going to be? Is and I think it's fair, everyone can have their preferences and stuff like that. But I feel for these guys, for people that, I'm very fortunate that I have hair, and not every guy is that lucky. And so it's like,
I don't think about that either, dude.
Yeah. It's like, I am deeply appreciative of the fortune that I've had. Because I don't know how my experience would differ, how I'd be different as a person if I didn't have those things.
And that's just a genetic blessing of you. Just talk about the hair part.
No fault of our own. Like people who lose their hair, no fault of their own. Yeah. There's the whole debate of like hormone levels and things like that, or healthy, all that sort of stuff. I feel like I do what I can to be healthy, to support those my like innate genetic stuff like that, which is also important. But like, what can you do? You can get a hair transplant or something like that. Like this.
That just sounds like a lot.
And I feel lucky that I don't have to deal with that.
There's also some bald dudes who pull, bro.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, I have a client of mine. He started to lose his hair, and he just shaved it all off. And he's like, I tried to see if I could do the bald guy thing and just shaved head stuff. He's like, it's not for me. I'm gonna go get the transplant. It's like, I have a couple. He's thinking critically about it.
I have a couple bald friends who are just like, you guys with hair, that sucks, dude. I just razor it every morning. That's easy. The
longer my hair gets, the more of an inconvenience it is.
Yeah, I grew my hair out probably like a foot, probably 4 or 5 years ago, and it took forever to dry. I was just annoyed by it.
I couldn't get past like like I had the back as a teenager. I had the like skater hair and stuff on my face. And
I saw you putting like a kickflip up. I was like, okay, let's go, John.
Actually, I used to skate and stuff. And I had that whole aesthetic of long hair. I couldn't get past a certain point. I had friends that went super long, and I was like, you know what, drying time, I don't want to have to wait for my hair to dry.
I know that part, dude.
I know, just shake it off.
What do you call it? Back to the shoulds. Like growing up, I was always said you shouldn't do any type of drug, right? It was like weed, any type of marijuana, shrooms.
Well, I mean, caffeine's a drug,
right? Yeah, as we drink caffeine, and
the label facing out.
We're currently on shouts out Brute Seltzers.
That's a fitness seltzer.
Fitness seltzer.
Yeah, it's tasty. It's good.
And it wasn't until like I moved out here that I got like more open minded to it. Also, it became legal. Like there's like weed shops that opened up, and I was just like, you could just go in here.
I've never had weed illegally, because where I come from, it was legal when I was a teenager. So I was
probably
like,
better that
it was legalized. It's like, all right, let's go to the store.
Yeah. So most of the weed that I've had is just all legal, and then I had shrooms for the first time. I think 2021, 2022, 2021, January 2021.
Congratulations.
Thank you. It changed my life. That's why we're currently on a small dose of shrooms and a little bit of marijuana, guys. And
disclaimer: 1 gram chocolate piece for me.
There we go.
And then we shared a joint.
Yep, good time.
Yeah.
But back to my point, shrooms changed my life in the sense of like every day I used to just think about life and death a lot and just these insecurities, and I would always be in my head about it. And then literally the day that I would get crazy anxiety, the day that I took it, this magical experience, I can't really articulate why, but after it, so much more free of like not judging myself type of deal.
It's amazing.
And yeah,
I mean, that's I try to understand the why, and I think that's a process I'm still working on.
What do you mean try to understand the why?
I mean, there's like the physiological effects.
So why that experience happened?
Yeah. So I was I was that kind of nerd where I didn't try any substances for a long time.
Yeah.
I didn't drink until I was 21. I didn't try cannabis until I was 23, and I actually had mushrooms first.
Out of all three?
Out of all of them. And no, not the alcohol. I had mushrooms. Okay. I had alcohol once it was legal. Okay. I thought for a long time, I was like, how long am I going to put this off? Sure. I have a sister who's 38 who's never drank in her life.
Oh, wow.
So, I was like, that's really admirable, but wasn't my path. So, on my 21st birthday, I went to my favorite restaurant with my dad, our favorite restaurant, and shared my first drink. And I thought that was a cool experience. And I found out that, alcohol doesn't, like, it's take it or leave it. I don't really, I'm not that interested in alcohol. It doesn't affect me that much. Yeah. And at the same time, I know it's a neurotoxin and it's not ideal for my health. So.
Yeah, there is that. I'm going to defend it because I'm a bartender.
I was a bartender too. I enjoy it. For a lot of people, it's a social lubricant.
Sure. There's that, but there's like an art form to it too. Like if like, for example, I bacon fat washed bourbon for like a couple weeks, right? And then you pair that with these coffee bitters that I made.
It's like being a chef
and make a candied bacon on top. And then now it's an art piece, but now you're getting like a social lubricant. Now it's not just a drink. It's not.
We fermented foods before we farmed them, I think.
Sure, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, animals even eat like fermented fruit as an experience. I think it's integral to society. But it's just unfortunate that we've picked one substance and said this one is okay to have in excess.
But nothing else is.
But nothing, yeah,
No, yeah.
Or let's see, can we make money off of it? Can we prescribe it?
Yeah, everything's such a business. Like you look at the food, right, and most of the stuff is not good for you when you go into a grocery store.
Yeah, I have like one hard dietary restriction, and it's funny living in the U.S. It's actually kind of difficult.
What is it?
No corn syrup.
Oh, there's a ton of things with corn syrup in it.
Yes, so much stuff, and that goes back to the corporations lobbying the government to push legislation to subsidize the corn farms, and then they get a tax break for utilizing it. Yeah. So you have an ingredient that's basically less than free.
Sure.
And so
also you could even like go even further to that, just with the farming crisis. In the sense of, dude, I came from a farming town in California, Fresno, in between here in San Fran, and there's like a farmer who gets paid from the government not to farm the crops.
Yeah.
And I was like, what?
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's farmers that get paid to farm corn that is never used. Yeah. They just put it in a silo and like it's there for the rest of their life at least.
It's so fucked up, dude.
Yeah, and there was even a propaganda campaign where you could look this up on YouTube, where they had like a kids party or something. SNL did a sketch about it. It was so funny. But they were talking about corn syrup in like the drink that they were drinking. And they did say some things that I felt like were, as a nutritionist, were factually inaccurate, and the campaign relied on people not fully understanding the science behind it or misunderstanding it. Yeah. They said it's the same as regular sugar and fine in moderation, and it is a different like if you talk about regular sugar, you think of like cane sugar. Sugar is an ambiguous term, so they could say that, and it's like, well, fructose is not glucose. Glucose is the only form of energy that we can use. And in order to utilize fructose, a different monosaccharide for energy, your liver has to convert that into glucose,
which takes a lot of.
Every single time it does, it creates VLDLs, very low density lipoproteins, which are like the worst kind of cholesterol. I have this theory that the prevalence of corn syrup has a lot to do with like the rates of heart disease in this country and obesity and stuff.
Well, it's crazy because like I've been to a few countries in the last few years, and like they're not fat.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't. Before LA, I spent some time in London, and I traveled around like Europe at that time. Yeah. And that's even we're very spoiled here in LA. Yeah. Even when I went to Vegas, I was like, wow, the average BMI here is like outside of LA skyrockets.
It's also funny because like there's a lot of pretty people in LA.
Oh, I'm on the west side. Yeah, you have to be pretty to enter. Yeah. Like it's insane. It's like the best place in the world.
And I went to Vegas for I went to Joe Rogan and Dave Chappelle's comedy special over there, and I was just looking around. I was like, not to be conceited, just like an objective view, I was like, I think we're the most in shape people here.
Yeah. Actually, the last time I went to Vegas, I was with my friend TJ. Yeah. TJ was my client. He's also a good friend now. He's very fit. He's a circus person as well. Okay. And I was looking around and I was like, there's a lot of fat people, and he's a lot of fat people. He was thinking it already. He's like, a lot of fat people in Vegas, and it hits different when you're seeing it. Yeah, and you're like, oh, we really are like lucky to be where we're at, like especially like the middle of the country and stuff. They don't have the same
access. There's a gym every corner.
It's culture.
Bro.
It's culture. Yeah. Here it's like you are not an acceptable Los Angelino unless you have a fitness routine.
Yeah.
And so I think people feel pressure. It's there's positive.
There's definitely negatives to it, but there's I like to see it as a positive pressure.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many active things to do with the weather here and like the city, the county. They really build on that.
So that's where I met Tommy from, American Ninja Warrior Gym.
Oh yeah,
we were there, and it was so funny because we were just talking about like crazy movements and backflips and this and that, and then he talked about the green, and I was like, oh, I was just on the green, and I was like,
small world.
And then we followed each other, and I was like, you know John? Yeah, I know John too. Like, that's crazy.
That's so funny. Yeah, I like being that person for people.
Yeah.
I've had people like reach out years later and they say like, yeah, we were talking, we realized you introduced us, and we've had they're in relationships or like they've had all these fun experiences, and they're like, thanks for being that glue, and that is also a like a source of happiness for me, to like facilitate these
connections,
very meaningful connections. Yeah,
that's one thing that I love about this podcast too. Like, you developed not a lot of people sit down and have hour-long conversations, right? Maybe 5-10 minutes. Like, you see them, you're like, how are you doing, this and that. But it's not like the deep inner core of like, who is this person? You get to know them and you get to know their whys. And especially if they're good at some craft, like for you, it's like fitness as a whole.
That's also the caveat though, is if people see you, people are much more interested in seeing your performance or your like content or your body. And I feel like a lot of people don't know who I really am because that's not what they're looking at.
It's not on the surface.
Yeah. And, I try to let it show. But again, with the algorithms can be very stifling to, like creativity and like, genuine content.
Sure.
'Cause if it doesn't fit the trend, no one's going to see it.
Yeah.
And so same thing is that's very tricky to you want to be your genuine self, but at the same time it's very discouraging to see like, oh, 2 people saw this.
Yeah, when it's not, your puzzle piece isn't fitting.
Yeah. It's like I have this amazing puzzle piece.
Yeah.
It's integral to the image of the puzzle.
Yeah.
But it doesn't fit. It's like, oh, it's the wrong puzzle.
And it has nothing to do with you.
Yeah.
It has everything to do with the system of that we are deciding to
social media algorithms,
put our art in, right? What does creativity do for you? Because I would say fitness is some of the craziest creativity because you could do anything with your body.
Yeah. Movement artists.
Yeah.
Movement artists. I love that. I mean, you have all sorts of different movement artists. I have friends and colleagues who are dancers, acrobats, even like jugglers and fire spinners and stuff. If they may not have the physical condition to do the other stuff, they're building up their fine motor skills to be able to do these like really sleight of hand and stuff like that. Is like,
dude, magicians,
amazing. Yeah,
crazy.
Yeah,
I went to the Magic Castle probably like a year ago, and I honestly didn't know how they did some of it. And it's sleight of hand. Like,
I think that's the idea. They don't want you to know.
I know, but my hand was closed, right? And they literally tapped it, and I opened it up, and 4 foam balls came out of my hand. And I was just like, how did that happen? I swear my hand was closed the entire time.
I mean, that just goes to show you that a lot of our experience is kind of what our brain is making it, so they're playing on that often, like our visual experience, our brain is making up most of what we see. And then we have like a little keyhole view. I mean, you're not even seeing things as you are. You're seeing the light reflecting off of molecules that are too close together for it to pass through. Different colors or different wavelengths and stuff.
Yeah.
And, there's a science behind like, these visual illusions and stuff like that. There's a science behind it. And that's really what magicians do, is they learn the science of it. And then they put it to practice.
Yeah. Dude, I'm so interested in the fact that you are diving so deeply into all these subjects. But
my constant state of mind.
Sure. But I feel like your attention is everything, right? What we are, social media, you're trying to get people's attention. And so we only have so much attention and energy during the day. And I find it fascinating that you just know so much about all these other things. Because I just don't see myself diving into every single subject to the smallest point because I just feel like there's not enough time and energy during the day. But clearly,
it's a practice. It's a practice.
You're living proof that it's possible.
Thank you. Well, I mean, with fitness, is that people don't have the energy to do 100 push-ups.
Yeah.
So what do?
Do 100 push-ups?
No, you do what you can.
Yeah.
And then the next day you do a little bit more.
Yeah.
And then over time you do more and more. You might not be able to do 100 in one go, but you could do 10 times with like some rest in between.
Sure.
And then if you do that enough and you practice it, you are like building up your body's ability to produce the energy. That is what anti-fragility is all about. Is you take these little challenges, and then at the end of the day, you're presented with a big challenge, and you're like, oh wow, I can handle this. That big challenge became a little challenge, and then you
cycle.
Then you beat that and move on. Yeah. There's always going to be bigger challenges.
There's always going to be a bigger boss, guys.
Yeah.
So circling back around to like the substances, or I guess like weed and shrooms. I always saw it from me, not growing up in a super open-minded household. Potheads, they don't do anything with their life, like, or drug users, they are bad. You will.
You grew up in Fresno. I mean, maybe it's this like suburban.
Yeah, it's very suburban
farm
for sure. But now, like all my friends who smoke weed are like
successful.
Not necessarily successful, dude. They're some of the craziest athletes I know, like ultra marathon
or
runners,
intelligent,
super intelligent, and we'll have all these conversations. And I was like, this concept of what I thought a pothead was. It's completely false.
I mean, that's growing up. I heard one time, it was actually kind of a funny joke. They were like, growing up is finding out that the school guidance counselor was probably taking acid on the weekends.
Yeah.
And like that's the thing.
Which is definitely possible.
Oh, I'm sure they all do. I mean, have you met a high school guidance counselor? But that's the thing is like there's so many. Caffeine is a psychoactive drug, a compound.
Yeah. Some people drink like 10 cups of coffee a day.
Yeah, and the reason I was most interested in mushrooms before I had tried anything was because I did my research about it and I understood how it worked. I saw that it was the safest drug in every category. It's impossible to overdose. It's impossible to get addicted. Physiologically impossible to get addicted. Cannabis doesn't fit that. People say weed is not addictive, but then we know people that are
addictive.
Yeah.
I mean,
and you could get addicted to eating a certain food.
Yeah. I take a month off. I kind of do sober October every year of like every substance, and it's hard, dude.
Yeah, well, anyone that's tried to have a high dose of mushrooms 2 days in a row knows that it doesn't work.
Doesn't work.
Your body is like, nope.
Yeah.
You had your go yesterday. You got to wait a couple weeks for it to hit the same.
For sure.
So there's not a lot of things that are. I think mushrooms are actually really interesting, like on a philosophical level, where it's one of the rare substances that you physiologically cannot have a habit. You can have a little bit, you can microdose, stuff like that, but then you're gonna have your regular life. You're not gonna be. You can't be on mushrooms all day every day. You just have to take more and more and more, and then eventually it just stops working.
That part.
Yeah, and so it was the safest in every category. There's the research has been limited, but they keep adding more to it, and I, from what I could tell, I felt like it was something that was positive, healthy, and something that could actually enrich my life. What did it do for you?
Yeah, like how did it enrich your life?
I mean, it's similar to your experiences. It felt like very therapeutic, and it felt very like mind opening. Where it allowed me to better understand perspectives that were not mine. And I think there's a phrase that I absolutely love. And it's, if meditation is the school of thought, then psilocybin is the crash course. And I feel like it can help kind of kickstart this natural self-development that is growing up, and its effect on neuroplasticity and your brain developing. It can facilitate like learning. The analogy they use is like the ski slopes, and anyone who's skied or snowboarded knows that later in the day people drive these grooves into the slopes, and then if you go to ski them, you get pushed in those grooves, and you kind of have to go that path.
Sure.
They equate psilocybin to like a fresh snowfall, where you can redraw your own grooves with the foundation of experience. Being older, the first time our trauma, those grooves are trauma. The first time that's drawn, these neural pathways, it was when we're a kid, and we don't have any foundation, we don't have perspective on it. We're not in the driver's seat, we're just experiencing it. and it's getting drawn in for us.
Yeah, those grooves are already there, and you're just kind of like skiing down the mountain.
Yeah,
that was such a good analogy, bro. I saw that perfectly.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it is it allows you to rewrite your brain with experience and perspective and with intention.
Yeah.
And that's why I think there's a big difference between recreational use of drugs and
intentional use.
Yeah, therapeutic use. Yeah. You know, it's I think that's the stigma that is, I think, breaking down right now. Australia just legalized mushrooms for therapeutic use. And, you know, this all over this country, they're following suit. They're doing the same thing. I want to say it's in SB 58 or something like that. It's in consideration right now to be, I mean, once a first world country like Australia is doing that, our FDA has already approved other psychedelics for integration therapy. It's just a matter of time. They just need to figure out how to monetize it, unfortunately.
Sure. I feel that. Dude, I always ask the people who are into fitness who come on the podcast, what is your favorite fitness movement, right? And what do you think is the most, if you had to choose one, the most beneficial movement that you could do for your body if you only had to choose one? A lot of people would said a squat. Some people said dead hang. Like, what's your favorite?
I want to be very general with that. Okay. I think it is very beneficial to be upside down.
Upside down.
Yeah, be upside down.
Explain.
You could do handstands, you could hang, you could just in some way invert yourself. In yoga, it's inversions and stuff. But it stimulates your vestibular sense. It's so good for you and your like the effect it has on your body of being upside down. It's an easy way to just integrate. Like if I were to say one thing, like I might say like calisthenics or something like bodyweight movements, but more specifically
upside down.
Yeah, challenge. I mean, there's this like natural, defensive, like nobody wants to be over their own head because we don't want to hit our head. Sure. So the first time people backflip, they go like that. They go to the side, or like handstands. They always want to like. They don't want to go 100% straight up and down because they don't want to not know how to fall. And it's same thing is like, how often do you try? Just throw it in every once in a while, go upside down somehow, and then it's more comfortable. Your body adapts.
What about your favorite movement to do?
If I were to get really specific, I mean, I have so many favorites. But there's a specific yoga pose. I have a photo of it somewhere that I feel like it takes me to like a different mental place, and I can get that from lifting and other types of exercise too.
What mental place? Like, what can you describe?
So the pose is a full lotus.
Okay.
Forearm stand, so it's an inversion.
Yeah.
Back bend.
I've seen it
with my chin to my chest.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like to have.
It's a very pretty pose, guys.
It's extremely stimulating.
Yeah.
And it feels like when you can relax in a state of tension and contortion, and you're being stretched and balanced and it's extreme. Once you can find relaxation in that position, it is euphoric. It's such a good experience.
Guys, I'm trying to find a euphoric feeling and trying to do the straddle, and John's over here saying that in this crazy pose, guys.
It's very advanced. It's very
Please
advanced.
go check it out. Like,
yeah, it's it's probably one of the hardest poses I can do.
Sure.
And then there's different levels of it too. You could do a couple of them together. You could do a lotus. You could practice them independently, forearm stands, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it just like we were saying before, is you got to make it harder and harder.
Yeah.
So for me, it was very stimulating to do lotus.
Yeah.
It was difficult. I had to focus on it.
Sure.
And then over time we adapt and we can get comfortable in that, and then you move on. You're like, okay, what else can I do? Yeah. And that's one of that's why it's my favorite. Game. It's because it's so much going on at once that like I had to earn that over years. Yeah. And it's. As you know, like as you get stronger, it takes more weight to feel the same thing.
100%.
Yeah.
What's your advice to people out there who aren't into fitness, who aren't into yoga, who aren't into any type of movement, and they're afraid to get into it? Yeah.
So I resent the notion of not being a fitness person because we all have a body. Yeah. We all have to have a relationship with it.
Sure.
And one of the things I say is if you don't spend some time and energy on your physical well-being, your physical health, eventually it's gonna force you to. You know, like
that's what I always say when we're talking about training and everything. I was like, doctors get paid to fix you. What if you never needed to be fixed?
Reactive versus proactive. Yeah. I try to be, that's, you know, why I dedicate my time and energy to helping people be proactive about it. And, you know, it's not easy to have these conversations with people about like, you know, someone that may have been deprioritizing their health for a very long time, including our own parents and stuff. It's a difficult conversation to have, to say like, you know, this is something that has been an area of opportunity for you. I don't want to say a mistake, but it's an area of opportunity. You know, I always have like a positive mentality about like, this is something that, you know, fitness for me and like health and stuff has always been something that I could be certain of, because there's no good reason not to invest. Like it's automatically a good thing to focus on your health and fitness and stuff like that. You're never going to regret it. Yeah. You know, there's other things, you know, you could regret getting into accounting. I mean,
the counterpart to that, so just like with not enough risk to hurt yourself, that could
exactly
potentially ruin some aspects of your life.
Safely integrating health and fitness. And some people take it too far, you know, and they have career-ending injuries, or you know, I had a pretty bad injury a few years back. I tore my left bicep.
Fuck, dude.
The distal tendon. I had to have it surgically reattached, which was a rough recovery. Yeah.
Looks fine now.
I was on a gymnastic high bar. They fixed it. 100%.
I was like, your bicep looks fine, bro.
Stronger than ever, and more mobile than ever. And part of it was because I wasn't spending as much time, like minimizing the risk by doing the homework exercises, the stuff that I make my clients do. You know, I was maybe a little hungover, a little dehydrated, and I just went for something that I had done like 100 times, and I just had not properly warmed up, and I like,
so warm up, kids. That's what he's saying.
What's that?
Warm up, kids.
Warm up, and also like over time, like stretching and doing like those mobility exercises. You know, there's the warm up for this workout, but there's the practice of being consistent about it that makes the biggest difference.
I have this one client who I've been training since I was he was 14. He's 18 now, or 19 now, and we did squats for the first time in like 3 months because he just hasn't been training lately. And he was like, can we just get into it? And I was like, no, dude, you got to warm up properly. I was like, I get it, you're 18, but I promise you, when you're 30, like you're going to regret not warming up. I promise. Yeah. Like get it into a good habit.
Yeah. Habit building is important. You know, it's because we are not 18 anymore. And when I was 18, I could get away with that. Now I feel it immediately. Now I'm like, oh, I did not warm that up. And it's telling me right now, it doesn't like, you could push it a little bit more, but eventually, like I said, your body keeps you in check and says like, hey, you have to do this or we're not going to work the same. And that's okay. You know, that's when you start doing those exercises and stuff. It just, you know, mix it up.
I feel you, dude. What does living a creative lifestyle do for you in terms of like happiness level? Because I feel like we both live a life where we're blessed to make a living.
Straddling that line. It's a challenge. I don't necessarily recommend it for everyone. You know, I've had some of the most enriching experiences in my life because of the creative connections I've made, community, the experiences I've had, the skills building up and stuff. But it's definitely an up and down. It's definitely a roller coaster. And
I mean, if we just take personal training, for example, right, there's that. But also it's like hard.
Yeah.
It's like
the immediate challenge. That's why people don't want to stretch, is because it's uncomfortable. Yeah. And then you gotta start embracing a little bit of discomfort because you know in the long run it's good for you. Yeah. You know, and you can do that at any point too. You don't have to live a creative life, but you can integrate a little bit of creativity in your day, in your regular life, in a way that doesn't like that doesn't become unhealthy or destructive.
What are you most excited for in your life right now?
I mean, I'm just stoked on life all the time, honestly.
Every day?
Yeah. I mean, like I said,
That's such a good answer, dude. I mean, because I feel the same way, but like, I love asking that question because, like, especially if I'm I'm bartending and I'll ask that to someone and be like, oh, my daughter's coming into town. I'm so excited to spend like this month with her. Or,
well, that's sweet. But overall, there's delayed happiness syndrome, right? Where people are so focused on this idyllic future of like, I'm going to be happy when this happens, or I'm going to be happy at this point in my life when I can buy that house, when I can retire, stuff like that.
So this Naval quote real quick is, he says, desire is the contract you make yourself to be unhappy until you get what you want.
Yeah. I like that. I like that a lot. Yeah. I mean, but what people find is that they focus on this idyllic future for so long that when they actually get to that point, and I've experienced this, which has initiated some changes in my life. Yeah. You get to that point and you realize that at the end of the day, it's the path of all those experiences leading up to it. It wasn't the buying the house. Yeah. It was the experiences. I bought a house in Seattle when I was for my 23rd birthday.
That's dope.
And the thing I enjoyed most about it was the experience of
buying a house.
Of shopping, buying, like learning about it.
Yeah. Now you have that knowledge.
Yeah, and then once I got in there, I worked on it myself. I put some time and energy into it, and then I have sold it since then. But that house that I bought in Seattle, for many years, this is a weird segue, but it's really appropriate. For many years, I was saying that if I were to try any drugs, including cannabis, I wanted to try mushrooms. I hit the future point. I bought the house. I moved in, and I was like, okay, now what? And I want to say like a month after moving in or something, my dog was digging around the garden. And Oscar, and
shouts out Oscar.
And
it's his birthday today.
No. It was his birthday a couple weeks ago. Okay. But yeah, he's 9 years old. So he was like a puppy at the time, and he was digging around the garden, and I was like, "What are you digging around in?" And there was a patch of mushrooms. In Seattle, psychedelic mushrooms just grow randomly all over the place. That's wild. And you can't really make them grow in the wild. When you grow them yourself, they have to be in a sterile environment because they are so. They can help, like they can live harmoniously with other plants and trees and stuff in nature when the resources are unlimited. You have the sun and water and stuff. Yeah. But as soon as you limit the resources by putting it in an enclosed environment, the mushrooms will just die to allow everything else to thrive. Very philosophically interesting. Yeah. And so I saw him. I was a Boy Scout. I was like pretty sure what these are. I took a picture, sent him to a friend.
I was an Eagle Scout. Let's go.
Yeah. And I asked him, I was like, is this what I think it is? And he was like, yeah, I'm on my way. Yeah. And so that was my first mushroom experience with a former work supervisor who's also a very good friend, old friend of mine, Justin. And
shout out Justin.
Yeah, he was someone that he also looked at it very critically. He understood like introducing something new to somebody, and like I said, when you have this thing that brings you a lot of like enrichment and happiness, you just want to share it. And so I could tell his intentions were good. And so because I trusted him, I was like, let's try this out. Yeah. And he kind of educated me on like dosage and setting and stuff like that, to make sure that it was a good experience from the start. And I think a lot of people, they might not have that foundation, and so they just try it out in a setting that is not great for mushrooms, like a concert or something, and that can be a little overwhelming.
Very overwhelming. Yeah. What are you talking about?
Yeah, you just want to chill and be with your friends or something. But at the same time, like, it's pleasant and very therapeutic in the right setting.
Yeah. Before we close up real quick, I wanted to talk about the masculine and feminine stuff. Dude, I feel like right now we're living in a world where like masculinity is put down upon.
We're guilty by association.
Yeah. And I don't know. I don't think it's good for the world.
Yeah. I mean, it is. I think a lot of men are feeling that like uphill battle of like and I get it too. We are an easy villain. It's someone that is superficially strong or masculine or something like that. And when you look at historically what people of our gender have done, then it's very understandable. People want to group people together. But I think it's important to not lose sight that everyone is an individual, and everyone can have, like, it's all about intentions, and with the right intentions, anyone can grow and learn. Yeah. I had an experience like last year, a couple years ago. No, it was last year, where I was out in Hollywood, and it was near the Walk of Fame. Yeah. Don't recommend it.
Don't recommend it, guys. Hollywood makes the Hollywood Walk of Fame look like the most sexy thing anyone wants to come visit to. It's not that, guys. We live here. I promise you, it's not worth seeing. Go like to Malibu. Go to Santa Monica's dope. You can check Santa Monica out.
Yeah, the West Side's my favorite.
West Side's
beach
dope.
towns, so chill. But no, so we're out in Hollywood, and I was with some friends. They were having some food and stuff. And there was this girl that was like waiting for an Uber or something. And while she's waiting, this guy, it was very obvious by body language and stuff, I could tell that she didn't know him and he was making her uncomfortable, just trying to talk to her. And as a man, you know, I want to be able to like see it from both perspectives. It's like I have sisters, I have female friends, I have people I care about. And I have also, as a man, felt physically uncomfortable around people when they're doing things like he was doing. But I also want to give him the benefit of the doubt. And I'm like, he wants to connect with her. He just doesn't necessarily have the experience, the foundation,
or the communication skills to be able to do so.
Yeah. And so I think when you approach it with love and compassion for both people and something like that, you can be constructive. You know, it's really easy to like, you know, go threaten him, say like, go, you know, leave her alone or whatever, and like create conflict that is not gonna necessarily help him. Or not as likely to help him. So what did you do? So what I said was, I was actually with one of my friends who, you know, she's a girl, and I was like, hey, let's go over and say something. Okay. Because I noticed this. And she's like, oh yeah, you can go. And I was like, no. Two men is a lot harder to, you know, it's like, it's maybe not going to help the situation. If she's already feeling comfortable, I was like, it'd be good if both of us go, if there's another girl. And we just walked over and said hi and pretended to be her friends. And we could tell that she was like, thanks. And then when the guy came back over, she was like, no, these are my friends. He was like, oh, you're popular tonight. And she's like, no, we were, these are my friends. We were just out or whatever. And
that's so cool that you read the situation that way. I don't know if I would do the same thing.
I mean, as bartending, a big part of what you do is preemptively like de-escalating what could be destructive conflict. Sure. And you know, I was a bartender, a bar manager at one time, and so
everything, man.
I try. It's exhausting, but no. So we went over, we talked with her, and then she got in her Uber and left. And then I have like compassion for the guy too, and I to talk to him afterwards, and I was like, you know, he had kind of stepped away, and I was like, hey, I'm sure that wasn't your intention, but like, you know, got like man to man, I was like, I just want to show like, you probably didn't mean to, but your body language, I think made her a little uncomfortable. And I was like, I get it. Like she's a beautiful girl that you know, you want to talk to and stuff. I was like, wouldn't you rather spend more time, like, you know, get to know her better?
Did he feel threatened by that response?
At first, yeah. So I mentioned it. I said, hey, I'm sure, but I also ahead of time wanted to say like, hey, I'm sure this wasn't your intention. You know, I'm sure you just want to talk to her.
Just prefacing that out there, putting it out there.
Yeah. Give him the benefit of the doubt and say like, I get it. You know, I've been there too. I'm also a man, and sometimes we have comfort that we don't realize, you know, we could be physically intimidating for somebody. So it's important to like create some space, like be like non-aggressive body language. And I told him, I was like, you'll see that it benefits you more. She'll want to see you again. Yeah. And at first he was like, F you. I know how to, like, I get women, stuff like that. And then he walked away. And then like 10 minutes later, he came back over and he was like, hey, I thought about what you said, and I appreciate that was some real talk. And he gave me a fist bump and he walked away.
I guess before he came back to you, do you take it personally when someone just No,
because my intention was to help him. And you know, again, comfort, and I didn't feel physically threatened. Sure. And I think that is also
a superpower.
It's an asset that I like to extend to other people who may not have that same physical security. Sure. So, you know, like, with my female friends and stuff, if I'm out with them, like, I want them to know that, like, if you need to feel safe and like need to use my physical security to feel safer, go for it. Like, please, that's what it's there for. You know?
Fuck yeah, dude.
And that's also the kind of the responsibility as a man is to, in the same way that like a Pomeranian can be as aggressive as it wants, and no one's gonna be concerned for their safety. Yeah. But if a pit bull or a bulldog is aggressive, that's a problem because they could do some real damage. So as men, as the more physically strong, generally, typically, you know, I know some strong women, some very capable women, but as the like physically stronger genetically, it's our responsibility to ensure safety for everybody and make sure everyone is having a good experience of this life that we're sharing.
Yeah. Also, I feel like most females don't want someone who is weak but like,
yeah, that's tricky. I mean, there's many different kinds of strengths. And I think all of them are important too. I think in the same way that, I one thing I say often is, when you exercise, you get stronger. Yeah. And that is equally true of the mind as it is the body. And so why is it hand in hand? Why, if you lift weight for a long time, how are you mentally getting stronger? I mean, they're literally the same system too. Yeah. If you think about, like I said, like the neurotransmitters that allow your brain to function, your central nervous system to function, are also supporting your physical body and stuff. And I think they're so like intermingled that you can't really properly separate them. Yeah. But again, everyone has this different relationship with both, and you want to have this balance. They can only help each other. Yeah. And so, like I said, in the same way that like some guys may not feel like it's understandable that women would want to be with someone that they feel like physically secure with and safe and stuff. It's also understandable that there's men and women both who can do that in a lot of different ways that are not physical security. You could communicate effectively and like make smart choices and stuff to make sure that happens, no matter what you look like physically. I think we'll end it there, dude. Yeah. We got to do this again. I feel like we didn't talk about a lot of things that I want to. Yeah. Where can everyone find you, and if they want to train with you, where do they find you, hit you up? I mean, Instagram is the easiest place. Okay. John Michael or whatever. Okay. I know. I was going to ask about that. Why the or whatever part? Everyone thinks it's a joke. They say, "What's your tag?" I'm like, "Oh, it's John Michael or whatever," and they think I'm joking, and they're like, "Oh, or whatever." Whatever. Yeah. With a name like John Michael, there's always a lot of John Michaels. There's always other Johns, and I just wanted something that was consistent across all platforms. Yeah. And John Michael or whatever was an idea that came up, and that's hilarious. It was available. It's funny because it's long. It's so long, but like I feel like it's so catchy that it's okay that it's long. Yeah, it's like passwords. It's like a more effective password is like 3 words. Yeah. Than like Z X like 1 2 like that sort of stuff. Technically, when you look at like the brute force like breaking a password, the short ones are like every digit you add makes it more. Yeah. So same with the usernames. It was like it was available. And I think it's also like I don't want to take myself too seriously. Sure. And so I think I feel like is a lesson that everyone should take is like it's not that deep, guys. Yeah. I mean, people like I said, people have these assumptions. They look at me and they expect a certain type of person, and I love to like break that assumption. Yeah. I think the John Michael or whatever like reflects that. Yeah. I also reflects like who you are because it's the fire shit or whatever. It's like or whatever. It's like John Michael or all the other shit. Yeah, and on Instagram, I have a link that you can schedule a session, cool. Or they can also just message me and ask about it. Generally, what I like to do first is set up some sort of like phone consultation or something like that to talk to them about why they reach out to me, what their goals are, stuff like that. And make sure that we are going to be that we're going to be compatible. I want to be able to help them, and if I feel like it's something that I can't necessarily help with, I am more than okay with referring to somebody else. I have a lot of friends who work in the space. We know so many trainers, dude. Trainers or also like body workers. That, it's not always necessarily trained. Sometimes they need a massage, and I'm like, hey, I don't do that, but I know some good like body workers, and so I think often what happens is actually so funny that you just say that. Hey, I know a few body workers. This happened today. Was I had a client who I did one session with asked me for like a referral. I referred them to somebody else, and they were like, that was amazing, that was so great. I think it back to the connection. It gave me credibility to be like, all right, now let's get back to your other stuff. Let's get back to your trade. Now that you've done the self-care, now we can push it harder. It also makes people trust you more in the sense of like, hey, this guy's willing to tell another expert about me and I'm going to give them business instead of give this guy business type of deal. But now you trust that person way more. Yeah. I need to offer like referral fees or something. I know. But no, I mean, they're friends too. Yeah. So like I want to help them. Also, you just want to generally help people. Yeah. I have one friend I've like referred so many people to her, and she's like, I'm booked out for like weeks. I'm fine. She's like, you don't need to do that. And I was like, yeah, but you really are like I know you're good, and I wouldn't recommend just anybody. Anybody. Yeah. So that's refer your friends, guys, especially if you got good ones. Yeah, exactly. Or if they you know, are an expert in something, if they have a career in something. I can't tell you how many times you probably have experienced this where someone starts doing something for their health and fitness and stuff, and they're like a close friend or family member, and you're like, why didn't you just mention it to me? And I could have pointed you in the right direction, and you probably would have been a little bit better experience. Yeah. So
cool.
I really appreciate having me on here. This is a lot of fun.
Dude, we gotta do it again. I feel so bad that we can't talk more. This is going so well.
There's always gonna be more chances.
Sounds good, brother. All right, go check out John Michael or whatever, guys, and we'll see you next time. Bye.